Hi, Mitchell Levy, global credibility expert. And you get to experience with me one of the most exciting parts of my day is interviewing a leader on their values. Like, how cool is that? So I have Lior Arussy with me today. Lior, welcome. Glad you're here.
Well, thank you very much for having me on your show.
Oh, you are so welcome. So, sir, who are you?
I'm a father of five, a grandfather of five, an entrepreneur, book author, and my biggest kick in life is to help organizations and individuals get out of chaos and reach a new growth level that they've never believed they can.
I'm still stuck on the grandfather of five.
Sure. Let's
Were
talk
you,
about that.
were you wait, did you enter some like time warp and you went ahead like a number of years and came back? What? Tell me about that.
Yeah, I think it was just part of my life values. I wanted a family. I wanted a large family, and my wife and I shared that value. We started family relatively young because we wanted to be young parents. It came with a price. We didn't have the money to live that way. We built it up as we go. We did it the hard way, but we wanted to be young parents and we wanted to be young grandparents because we wanted to be relating to our children and grandchildren and not just spewing old wisdom that they will find irrelevant to their lives.
That's amazing. So lots of people say that they're better grandparents than they were parents. Is that something you tell me what your experiences are as both a parent and a grandparent?
So I agree with that to a degree, but I don't know that I'm fully agreeing with that because it's almost implying that we did a very bad parenting job. But you know what? If we already have grandparents, then we didn't do a bad parenting job. Look, parenting is one of those things that doesn't have any real recipe or blueprint. After having five children, each one of them is different. Each one of them requires its own path and its own support. So by the time you get to grandparenting, I think the biggest advantage you have is that you've seen a couple of patterns. So you don't get to freak out about things that you freaked out as a parent. You saw something and it's right away we need to go to emergency room. I mean, like, how can my child do this and that? And it's like by the time your grandparents like, okay, we've seen some patterns, calm down, you build your own blueprint, you build your own guide, and you can also calm down your children and help them become better parents. So I think that's the real truth about grandparents are a little bit better than parents. The shallow story is like, oh, when the baby is pooping, you're just handing it back to the parents, so that makes you a better grandparents. But I don't subscribe to that, and we do change the diapers of our own grandparents as well, grandchildren as well.
Well, there is something about changing the diapers at the beginning and then, of course, at the end. But that's a different story. The That's interesting. Yeah, that was elegantly put. I think it's simply the what I hear when I talk to folks is the comfort level, the things that bothered you when you were an initial parent no longer bother you, and then you get to see the end result, the end pattern of everything you did.
Yeah, it's exactly that. When you start with the first child, you're just freaking out. You're anxious. Every little thing is being amplified and magnified, and you want to be the perfect parent. Like there is such a thing, there isn't. And in that pursuit, in the absence of a little bit of dimension of time and success, every little event becomes overly amplified and magnified with its fears and so on and so forth. And I think as time passes and you do have some experience, you gain a certain level of confidence, of comfort. I don't know how to call it, but you're approaching it in a much more relaxed way. You still obviously aspire to help your children, help your grandchildren, and so on and so forth. But you know what? I'll put it this way: you can laugh more freely with your grandchildren because there's less anxiety. You can actually enjoy the laughter as opposed to being so consumed with your anxiety that you're acting on a version of you that is borderline, fearful.
Mm. What would you say were the values that you and your wife brought initially to being parents, and then how have they changed now that you're grandparents?
So there's several values that, even before we get married, we discussed. Education was very critical for us. We knew that we are going to make sacrifice for education. We want our children to get the best education, the most holistic view. We don't want them to have a one view of the world. We expose them to other things. We traveled with them. I honestly believe that every American needs to travel abroad just to appreciate what they got here. Guys, you don't know how well you have it. So we took our children to some places. They've seen some difficulties. So that's value number one, education. Value number two, and we've been teaching this to our children: you're entitled to nothing and you need to earn it. This is how we were raised. I believe it's the right way to do it. And yes, it's tough, but you know what? You appreciate every gain. You appreciate what you've gotten. You don't take it for granted. And that was a very critical value for us. And the last one is giving back. I mean, charity is very, very critical to who we are and what we do. Our children see that in us, both in giving time, not just giving money. And I want to share with you a small example of how that value came to life in a powerful way. So in 2003, I started my own consulting business. Started from the garage, built it to about 150 consultants with offices in Australia, in Europe, in Canada, and in the US. And I established a certain practice in the company, and that is, on December 1st, every employee receives a budget that they need to give to their favorite charity. Not a match, a real money. They need to go to the controller and say, this is my charity, please send the check on my behalf. Not the company, your name is going to be on it. And then at the holiday party, every employee stands up, shares which charity they gave and why is it so meaningful to them. And for me, it was one of the best moments every year in the company, is to see my own people feeling so powerful by giving back. So the moment of truth came in 2009. 2009, if you were a businessman, if you were an entrepreneur, it was dark. I remember I got so many cancellations of business. I was working so hard just to keep the business afloat. I had employees coming to me and saying, we know that if you'll fire us right now, you'll do better, and so on and so forth. And then came December 1st, 2009, and all the employees were watching to see, what am I going to do? That was a moment of testing my values. And I made the choice, at the expense of profitability, at the expense of other financial considerations, to give them the budget, not the same size, a smaller size, but nevertheless, we are not stopping. And the message I gave to all the employees is there are always people out there who needs it more than we do. And I have to tell you, that moment of truth in 2009, when we had a very modest holiday party, but everybody stood up and talked about who they gave to, it was so meaningful. It was so powerful. It was more important than any food I would serve in that holiday party. And it was the moment where people knew that when I talk about my values do not just live when they're convenient to be executed or lived by, but also when it's absolutely painful. And I believe that at the end of the days, values only exist when they're being tested in real fire, in real difficult times. Otherwise, they're just statement of intentions.
And of course, we have fire, police or fire engines coming past us, right?
Yes. So hence the point of fire. Yeah, we added some additional sound effects
That's good
to
sound effect.
the
So
dramatic situation here. Yes.
so I love that when I first heard that story, and it still is powerful to hear today. And in the reminder that it wasn't a matching program. It
No, it
was a
was
way
not.
in which you basically said, "Hey, a portion of our profits, this piece." I don't know if you just said, "Here's a dollar amount," or if it was a portion
It's a
of
dollar
profit.
amount. No.
A
It's a
dollar
dollar
amount.
amount. It's a dollar amount. They were given a dollar amount, and they just needed to decide where to give it. I have to tell you an interesting story within that. One employee came to me and said, I never gave charity in my life. I don't even know whom to give to. I have to go on Google and see which organizations even take charity. Like that was for me like, oh wow.
That's a gift. That's an amazing gift. So, the values associated with credibility is the intent and commitment to do the right thing, not when it's convenient, but all the time. To have respect for who you are, for your employees, and for the world around you. I like that. Right. So, without naming names of clients, when you share that story with clients that should be doing this, have you occasionally had pushback?
First of all, clients saw that we're very, very authentic in the way we come to the business. So, for example, our consulting business was not based on hourly rate or based on daily rate. We had fixed fees. We are accountable to the deliverable, and you're going to get that deliverable come hell or high water. And they knew it. They knew that we will put the moment we are not charging by the hour, change the whole dynamic between us, and they could actually ask us for what they needed, and we'll actually put our efforts in there. And I have to tell you, one time a client came to me and he said, I know you lost money on this project, and we want to know how much you lost. And I said, none of your business. I made a commitment to give you the deliverables. We created the change that you wanted. If you want to repay us, bring us more referrals. And that's exactly what they did. They brought us more referrals and we got more business as a result of it. So when I talk to my clients, they know that there's no traditional dynamic of consultants or service provider where everything is by the hour and so on and so forth. So it changed that. And the conversation is very, very authentic from that perspective. And we have our own ways of opening them up to tell us exactly what hurts and not just what the surface is. And every so often when we see them struggling, by the way, I'll have the following discussion with them. I said, okay, who was the last consultant that was here and what happened? Because clearly you're hurting and you're taking it on us. So let's talk about that experience. And being able to conduct those conversations in a very authentic way. And we work with some of the biggest brands out there, Fortune 100 companies. I was competing against the biggest consulting firms, but we brought something that they didn't get from the other guys.
I want to reframe that question, but I'm talking about now when you work with clients today.
Correct.
So the clients that you serve today, and you help them, as you said up front, you help them grow. Do you also share with them that they should be doing some form of charity like you just outlined before?
So I have a very interesting approach to that. The answer is, in short, yes, but I'm starting in a different way. Every company have a social responsibility department. That's the department that will initiate some kind of one day of volunteering or something like that. The problem is not with the one day of volunteering. The problem is that you come back to the office and then you continue to behave in a certain way that is inconsistent with the one day of volunteering. So my message to them is the one day of volunteering needs to happen every day. And here's the way I would present it to them. I would say, look, you obviously find a lot of value in volunteering and helping people in need. How about you look at your customers and employees as people of need? And the only difference is that your customers are paying you for your service. How about if you'll apply the same amount of generosity, empathy, humanity to the way you actually work with your own clients, with your own customers? They need your empathy. They need your generosity. They need your authenticity. They need your out of the way. So look at this way. You're actually getting paid. You're actually getting paid to do impactful work. So I'll give you a great example. I was working with a certain client that specializes in mortgage issuance and so on and so forth. And remember that show, Home Makeover, where, they come for a week, they rebuild the house to some amazing house and so on and so forth. So I was in a workshop once. The workshop was full of attorneys specializing in home acquisitions and mortgages and everything else. And I asked them, how many of you would volunteer for this show to go in and work there? And they all raised their hands. It's like, I want to do that. Now, when you ask lawyers to volunteer, clearly they are counting how much each hour cost them. So to volunteer for a whole week, it's a lot of money. And then I asked them, why would you do that? And they said, oh, wow, we're helping families in need. We're helping them create the American dream. They get into a home. Putting families in home is a high mission. And I said, That's exactly what you do every day when you issue mortgages and you help them close on houses. Why don't you bring the same attitude and you're actually getting paid for it? That's what I challenge my clients. I'm saying, just as you're willing to dedicate one day of humanity, empathy, and generosity under the category of social responsibility and volunteering, let's do the 365 days with our real customers who are human, who are in need, and can definitely use some generosity.
All right. So give me an example. Love that, by the way. Give me an example where that didn't work. I mean, that's very logical. What you just said is very logical. It makes a lot of sense. And I'm going to say if, well, I'll give you a hint here. Well, I'll give you a little bit of time to think that through. If the company is based on core values that they are excited about and they really feel like they're satisfying a need versus they're just making money. If the company is really doing that, then this is a scenario that really makes sense to me. I love it. But and so now that was my hint for you to find an example where it didn't
Yeah.
work.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to bring you an example that didn't work at the beginning, but eventually it did. But let's start with that. Okay, it's one of the regional banks in the US. And we were working all around how to be there for the customers, put the customer at the center of everything that we do. And one vice president came to me and he said, look, Lior, here's a story. It's a very simple process that I'm in charge of. So every day, the bank scans all the checking accounts of all the customers. It starts by scanning your opening balance, then it scans your withdrawals, and then it scans your deposits. So imagine that you had $100 in your checking account at the beginning of the day, and then you withdrew $500, and then you deposited $1,000. Because I'm scanning withdrawals before deposits, you will be now penalized for an overdraft, and I'm going to charge you special fees.
By the way, my bank still does that, and it makes me mad.
And he said to me, if I will reverse it and scan first the deposits of the day and then the withdrawals, everything will work well. But I can't do that because I'm making $8 million a year in fees just from this process. He said, how can I justify that? And that was a beginning of that's an example of something where the guy said, look, the numbers, I'm making money. They're not switching banks. So why should I do anything different? And it's a lot. It's a hard cash. It's $8 million of fees just on doing this. What we did, like any other thing, okay, organizations do not just exist for purpose. Okay, they have stockholders, they have shareholders. They need to demonstrate that financially it's the right thing to do. And that's exactly what we did. We compare customers that were dinged like that on a regular basis versus customers who were not. And we look at the overall amount of business they were doing with the bank. And you could see that by irritating them like that, they did not purchase as many products, or they diversified their purchases with other banks or with other financial institutions or with digital platforms versus the other guys whom you did not make a $9.95 fee for overdraft, but over a 5 years period, you actually accumulated more products. So we went back and played their game on their field and said, you want to look at the financials? Let me show you the financials. The only problem is you're thinking transactional, you're not thinking relationship. When you look at it from a relationship standpoint and you put the longevity of it, you're losing money.
That's a great story. All right. Thank you for that. Now, once you presented the facts in that way, did the bank actually make a decision to take out deposits first?
The answer is yes, plus launching campaigns to be more deliberate about customer retention and capturing a larger portion of the customer budget. So I was able to show them that they're actually making more money that way, but they had to act on retention in a different way than what they've done in the past.
How did you initially build trust, either with that client or generally with clients? Once you start, and let's grab an example where you were thrust on the person who's doing operations by somebody else, right? So it could be the CEO or the board where they said, hey, you're not going to come in. And then all of a sudden, the person you're working with day to day, they didn't hire you. How do you build trust?
Oh, I'm gonna start with a very negative example. Okay, so I was working with the European organization. The CEO hired us. The VP of marketing did not want to see us. Prior to actually creating the budget for the project, I specifically submitted questions if we need to do the surveys in 6 languages as it is customary in Europe. And we were told by the marketing department, no, we only need English. We submitted a proposal for English only to be told right after the contract was signed that they need 6 languages. And I look at the director and I said, you're the one who said to me that you do not need 6 languages. I have it in email, and now you're saying that you need 6 languages. What's going on? And he said it to my face. He said, we do not want you here. That's why we told you only English, because we know you're going to lose money by doing it in 6 languages. So go away. Okay?
Wow. Okay. By the way, even you communicating that to me just had my heart sink. Okay.
So at that point, you have a choice. You can go back to the CEO, start pointing fingers and telling them and blaming people and telling them that his organization is dysfunctional and so on and so forth. And I told my team, we do not show up to the finish line with excuses. First, we show up with the results, and then we'll go and settle scores if needs be. That guy did not believe that we issued the study in 6 languages at our own expense. Okay, he continued to put sticks in our wheels throughout the whole process. The CEO only found out when I finished the project. Okay, and he said to me, "Why didn't you tell me?" I said, "I do not show up to the finish line with excuses. That's not how I was raised. That's not how we do things. I do not do that. I show up with results as I promised, and then whatever you need to do, you need to do." That person was fired on the spot the moment the CEO found out. And the budget of marketing was 90% of the budget of marketing was shifted to sales in order to penalize the VP of marketing for doing that. I did not ask for any of that. And as a small little touch, the CEO said to me, "Look, we are sponsors of Formula One. I want to take you and your son to one of the races. Come with me on my private jet and stuff." It was a great experience. But yeah, we get animosity. People don't want change. People don't want people meddling with their own business. So how do you build trust? We used to come with, we know better than you. And what I learned over time is that we are smarter by asking questions they didn't think. So there are 2 types of questions you can ask a client. Question they'll answer right away, and question that you see them pause and think it through. It's the second type of questions that makes them smarter. So if you really want to build trust, don't try to show off you've done it, but ask a question that will make them think about something they didn't think before, and then they'll gain the knowledge, they'll gain the confidence, and they know that by the virtue of you asking those questions, you've been there, but you're not coming from a place of shaming them. You're coming from a place of trying to help them and asking them that question.
What that implies is that they have a little bit of 2 things. They're a little bit vulnerable, and that they're coachable.
Correct.
Right? So have you stumbled upon someone who didn't have either one or the other, but you were able to convince them the importance of being vulnerable or the importance of being coachable?
So let me start with an example where it didn't work, and then I'm going to go into an example where it did work. Okay.
Perfect.
So I sent one of my consultants to do a work in Austin, Texas. Somehow, without her knowledge, she was scheduled to meet with the COO. She did not know about that. She was late for the meeting. The COO yelled and screamed at her in front of everybody else and embarrassed her for wasting his time. She called. I said, "Can you handle it?" She said, I'm okay. I can handle it. I said, "Finish the project and finish the assignment. Come back and I'll deal with that." She returned. I listened to what happened. I called the CEO. And I said, sir, we're expecting an apology for that behavior. That behavior is unacceptable. And he said, let me check what happened, whatever. He calls me back and he said, I assessed the situation. And according to my assessment, he berated her at the right amount. And therefore, there's no need for apology. Okay? Here, on the spot, I said to him, sir, here's what's going to happen next. I'm going to now issue a check for your initial payment. I'll be sending it to you via FedEx. It will arrive tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. And at that point, we will no longer be speaking. Because if you believe that there is the right amount of shaming in front of other people, we do not share the same foundation of values in which I can help you. The guy was stunned, asked me to reconsider. I said, I am not going to reconsider. The fact that you had no problem telling me what you just told me on the phone and that you claim that you assessed the amount of berating, that's unbelievable. Now let's go to the example that it did work. This is a real case story. We were at the Aria Hotel in Las Vegas. They have one of the biggest convention centers. In fact, you need a special makeup artist because the screens are so large that you cannot just show up on stage without proper makeup. And the CEO of this German company turns to me in the back, in the green room, and he said, Lior, I want to sign up for you to coach me how to do public speaking. You're so good at that, and I'm so bad at that. I'm a banker. I'm German. I don't know how to speak, and I want you to coach me. And it was his turn to go up next. And I said to him, are you serious about that? Do you really want to be coached? And he said, yes. I said, tell me why you love this company. And he told me the story. And I said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go on stage there in front of your employees, and I want you to tell them exactly that. Don't change a word of what you just said. Go and tell them why you love this company. Don't show them slides. Don't show them anything. Stand in front of them and tell them why you love this company and why is it so meaningful to you. I said, why would they care? All they need to know is what the KPIs. I said, you ask for coaching? I don't need 50 sessions. Start right now. Go out there. Tell them the same story you just told me. And then ask them whatever you want to ask them, whatever goals you have that you want, whatever strategy you want. But don't use slides. Just go stand up there. You could hear a pin drop in that room, which was, I think, 2,000 people, okay? And he came back. He was so energized. And I said, it can be done. So here's what I can tell you. I've worked with some very powerful CEOs. And what we need to remember that under all the bravado, there's a little kid that says, I don't know. There's a little kid that at the end of the day, and especially when you're at the top, you cannot show vulnerability. At least that's how they perceive it. So they're lonely. They're at the top and they're lonely. And the one that I use all the time to kind of open up the conversation, I said to them, look, I was a CEO of a company. I was a CEO of a division at HP. And I have to tell you something. I never know if I'm funny or not, because I never know if they're laughing because I'm the CEO or if I'm actually funny. And you know what? I will probably never know. And that little thing kind of breaks the ice. And what you need to do is you need to create a safe space for them where you respect their achievements, but also allow them to be human. Because before they're CEOs, before they're VPs, before they're COOs, they are that little kid that have rose up to a certain level that they probably did not imagine they can, and they feel afraid. And some of them might have imposter syndrome, which is what I talk about in Dare to Author.
Nicely done. Okay, listen, if you're still here, I'm going to ask two more questions. So stick around for the second one because it's the one that's always compelling. First one, Lior, if people liked what they heard and they wanted to reach out to you, what is the best way for them to do that?
So in all social media, I'm very active on LinkedIn. It's the best way to reach me there. My website, liorarussy.com, LIORARUSSY.com, has wealth of articles and videos all available. Read them, get inspired, and obviously reach out to me with whatever questions. So these are the two primary ones. I'm active on Instagram, but not as much.
All right. Well, thank you for that. All right. So this conversation went a way that you and I both didn't know. And I'm curious, is there a question that I should have asked you, or based on this conversation, is there another question that you would like to ask yourself?
So the question I think we all ask ourselves and don't often ask as much is what really drives us after we've already achieved certain things, after you've already done certain things. Why next? Why not rest? And I think that's a question, by the way, that I asked one of the most successful managers in sports after he won over 37 different awards and stuff like that. So I think that's a question we don't ask ourselves often. It's like, what drives you after all the success? Why a 10th book after 9?
By the way, I did actually have asked myself, and that's a question I actually do ask my clients. And I want to say that's a great question. Lior, what drives you? After all this success, what drives you? Good question.
I think that there are two type of center of gravity for people. The first one is fulfilling our own needs, and we are the center of gravity. And I think the first wave of our success fulfills a little bit some of the insecurities and fears, and establish us with more confidence. But ultimately, what drives us is when our center of gravity shifts from ourselves to the impact that we make on others. In Dare to Author, I cite a study by Harvard Medical Journal where they actually demonstrate that people who are focusing on giving to others are happier, live longer, and are healthier as a result of it. I think that ultimately, when our center of gravity is giving and not receiving, when we are in the business of the power we do have, not the power we don't have, it's intoxicating. The ability to be there for people at the moment of need is intoxicating. I can't stop that.
Yeah, it really is. And that's a great closing comment. I want to thank you for showing up and echoing the values of credibility the way you have. And I really appreciate your time, energy, and what you do.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on the show.
Well, you're absolutely welcome. Hey, listen, for those that are still here, this is now, if you haven't done it yet, this is now your time to take action. Click on the like button, grab the aha moments that really resonated with you, and post them. Share Lior's cred dust on those platforms that are important to you. Anyhow, thanks for joining us. Looking forward to seeing you at the next episode of Leaders Living Their Values. Take care, everyone. Bye now.